All right, welcome to this recovery interview. If you are wanting to apply to work with me and my team in our Rise Unlimited program to help you become symptom free, simply go to www.coachjordanhardgrave.com/apply. There's a link in the description as well as the first pinned comment. We will work with you to help you become symptom free with 12 weeks of unlimited coaching. And if by the end of the 12 weeks you are not either fully symptom free or 100% confident that you can recover on your own, we will work with you for free until you are 100% symptom free. That is our offer. Of course, we can't work with everybody. That's why you do need to apply for us to look at your situation. But anyway, if you're interested in that, click that link, go to that application and apply. And I hope you enjoy this interview. Make sure to click like if it helps you, comment something below, subscribe, and we will talk to you real soon.
All I can say is that this program, and I truly mean this, has literally saved my life. And I don't think I would be able to be at the place where I'm at today if it wasn't for the RISE program.
All right. What is up, my friend?
Hi, Jordan.
It is so good to see you, and thank you so much for doing this.
Of course.
Well, I am very excited to talk about this. Your story is extremely powerful, and I know that it's going to give hope to so many people. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart from taking the time to do this because I help so many people recover. And I get it, they just want to move on with their lives. But whenever people take the time to kind of capture the before and after, it gives hope to so many people. And it also, shows people that what we're doing is working and that it's changing lives every single day. So you are the bomb.com. And I am so freaking excited about this.
Yeah,
So
I'm happy to be here too.
absolutely. So let's go ahead and start off. You know, what uh were the first symptoms that you started to experience and when? Like how old were you and what were the first symptoms that you started to experience?
So I was in the 11th grade. This was about 3 years ago. I was about, I think, 17 or 16 years old. I had my very first panic attack. This was while I was smoking weed. Um, and that was my first experience. And I kind of, pushed it off. I didn't think much of it. But then another panic attack happened, and another panic attack happened. And I kept like brushing it off. And I didn't want to think about it. And then all of a sudden, without even experiencing anxiety, it happened within like a second. I felt extreme dissociation, depersonalization, derealization, um, and it just wouldn't go away. So it really just happened. It happened within the span of a few weeks from that panic attack. Um, and then, of course, there was also anxiety. I feel like I've had every single symptom you could think of. I had intrusive thoughts. I had a major existential like crisis, it felt like, and I would just dwell on these like questions that I had in my head that um yeah, that I just couldn't stop thinking about. So it was really anything, you name it. I feel like I experienced all the symptoms.
Yeah, it pretty much sounds like my story. Like I'm like it's so amazing too, like how many people come to me, same, like obviously different story, but same symptoms.
Yeah.
And wow, so whenever you started having those panic attacks, like what was going through your mind? Like did you feel like you were going crazy? Like did you know what a panic attack even was?
It's crazy because I didn't even believe in anxiety, and I thought everyone who was experiencing it was either just, making it up as an excuse to get out of things or just, I don't know, like pitying themselves and just making their lives seem worse. So it was just the biggest shock, and it was so scary because I literally didn't think it was real. So yeah,
Wow.
I thought I was going absolutely crazy, and no one in my family really discussed their experience with panic attacks and anxiety. And it felt like I was just, I don't know, it felt like I was just very alone in this. And I don't know, just because I was so confused and I felt like I didn't really have that much knowledge of like what was going on and like why it was going on.
Yeah, that was very similar with my experience. it's like my mom had severe health anxiety growing up, and I remember seeing her just freaking out and having to call the ER. She had these pills that she took. We called them the pee pills because they reached like urine, and every time she get anxious or have a panic attack, she would take those or whatever. And I just remember her going to the ER and all this stuff. But I didn't know that it was called a panic attack per se. I mean, I'm sure I'd heard that word, but I just didn't connect a panic attack with that experience. And so whenever I started to have them, especially whenever depersonalization realization kicked in, I mean, the only thing that I thought in the moment was that I'm going crazy. And I have had sadly he's passed away. He had mercury poisoning, and this was before they had a cure for it. But anyway, he kind of was like the crazy guy in our family. No disrespect, but he really did lose his mind. He would talk to himself and just kind of point randomly and just do all kinds of bizarre things. And so I'll never forget like sitting there in my mom's kitchen, and I was having like 20 panic attacks a day. And I was like, I'm literally going crazy like my uncle. I just remember it felt so real at the time. I was like, well, my life is over. Like, I'll never get married. I'll never have kids. I'll never be able to do anything in life. And I'm the guy, I remember I was like, I'm the guy in my family that went crazy. Like, who would have thought? Like, it just felt so
Yeah.
real.
Mhm.
And I definitely had never heard of depersonalization realization before. But basically, after a long time of wrestling with this, I ended up calling my dad, and I was, because it was embarrassing, like, you know, I didn't want to tell anybody. I thought that me telling people represented me essentially giving in and giving up on trying to get rid of it. I was like, well, it's kind of like I'm disclosing to my family, well, I've lost my mind. I told my dad, and my dad was like, well, son, I told my dad, I was like, I feel weird. I feel like I'm dying all the time, and I feel like I'm going crazy. And I started crying, and he's like, oh, okay. He's like, well, son, it sounds like you're having a panic attack. Your mom used to have them all the time. I was like, that's what this is? And even just knowing what that was really, really encouraged me. So let's fast forward a little bit. Um, you had mentioned in your application to work with us, and we've discussed this too, that you started to see a psychologist, and you
Mhm.
got just at least a little bit of reassurance because you were at least working on stuff, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they use some sort of like cognitive behavioral therapy?
It was completely cognitive. Yeah, I remember I think the only reason really why it helped me was just because I thought, "Oh, I'm in the hands of a professional." That really put my mind at ease. Did the symptoms go away, and did I get to the root of the problem? No, I really didn't. I Yeah, we did a lot of focusing on the symptoms. I remember I had to track symptoms a lot and
Mm.
always rate them. It was just very, like, symptom focused in a weird way. Um, but at the same time, like, talking about them and, like, just saying, trying to be more mindful about things, but not really, it just felt like it wasn't, like, getting to the root of the problem. And I was focusing on almost, it just felt like the wrong things, and it wasn't really going anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what I see quite often is, like if somebody gets into the mental health field, I mean, they've obviously got a passion to help people. And, I mean, some of the most incredible people I've ever met have been therapists or psychiatrists, etc. But you can have a good heart and the wrong approach. And unfortunately, um, a lot of times when people are dealing with things like trauma, which depersonalization, realization are part of a trauma state, a state of nervous system overwhelm, which causes all kinds of chaos in the body, a good person with good intentions will use an approach that doesn't include a shift in physiology, which is very, very paramount, right? Trauma is a body that is constantly preparing for a threat that never comes. And then not only that, but we now know that a huge part of healing involves co-regulation, which is the person that you're working with's ability to create hope as well as build relationship. And unfortunately, this is working against a lot of people as well, as they've never been through the symptoms. And so you show up, and in your mind, you're thinking, okay, this person has their license in mental health. I'm in good hands. And generally speaking, that's true. But whenever it comes to these particular symptoms with trauma, there's just a huge lack of education And then also, most of the time, they haven't been through those symptoms. And so that just really compromises their ability to create hope if they don't even know what the symptoms are, as well as building relationship. Like they can build relationship with you, but if they've never been where you're at, it's really hard. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And so I hear people say all the time, they'll go to their therapist or their psychiatrist or psychologist or social worker, whoever, and they're great people, but they've never experienced their symptoms and they don't even know what they are and they have to look them up. And it's like, that just kind of destroys hope. And hope is a very powerful thing. And so, anyway, with that being said, that's one reason why me and my team have been able to help so many people because we're all former symptom sufferers and we are fully symptom free and we know how to create hope in people. And that also automatically builds a connection. I mean, if you've been through the same terrifying, devastating symptoms, it's like an instant connection. And also, we understand the nuances of recovery, which are very nuanced. Like if you've never been through these symptoms, whether it's depersonalization, realization, the memory issues, time feeling distorted, people feeling like robots, looking in the mirror and seeing a stranger, or the existential crisis, or the health anxiety and all this stuff, or the intrusive thoughts, it's such a nuanced experience and recovery path that it's just almost impossible to truly help somebody get to the root unless you really understand it on a deep level through experience. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult. So anyway, with that being said, um what else did you try? So you tried kind of working with that psychologist, more cognitive based approach, which is problematic because the cognitive brain starts to shut down the more that your body is in fight, flight, freeze. What else did you try besides that?
I remember always trying to work out because I felt like if I were to distract myself, I wouldn't have to feel the symptoms and focus on the symptoms. So I would just do like these intense workouts and I just wouldn't think of anything. I would just blast music and just work out. Um, but then after my workout, the symptoms were still there, they wouldn't go away. So that was something I would do a lot. And then just,
Well, hold on, let's speak to that for a
yeah.
second. So, you know, a lot of people assume that going to the gym is always good. And I will say, generally speaking, obviously taking care of yourself, being healthy is good. But you would be surprised how many people go to the gym because it's a numbing and dissociative experience. You throw on the headphones, that's going to get you deep in your head, out of your body. You're not experiencing interoception, which is the experience of the embodied self. And thus, you're not feeling all the tension, energy, and emotion in your body and fatigue in your body. And then, secondly, whenever you work out, there's a lot of endorphins that are released, which are natural painkillers. So you're basically numbing your body as well. And so that's why I tell people, if you're working out, take the headphones out or maybe just put one in and be in your body. Like if you're doing a bicep curl, feel the effects of the weight on your bicep. It's actually helpful to build muscle too. As you can tell, I'm the guy to give muscle advice with these little pea shooters, but no, but seriously, it's like the mind body connection. But anyway, the gym can become a numbing and dissociative experience. And a lot of people don't think about it. They just think, okay, going to the gym equals good. And they feel better while they're there. So they think, oh, this is good for me. But in all actuality, it actually may be pushing you further from actually dealing with the root, which is your body being full of fatigue and tension and energy and emotion and all kinds of other things. So you did that. And what else did you do?
I know that I was scrolling on my phone a lot through TikTok, through Instagram, and that is just like, yeah, I could do that for hours and just completely um forget about my symptoms. Sometimes they would actually even be there when I would be scrolling, but I just still, it was better than having to deal with it and just like live life off of my phone and deal with the symptoms versus like having a little virtual reality going, and it kind of made me feel better, but it wasn't really,
Yeah, it didn't actually help. Yeah, I mean, those social media apps, I mean, they are designed to get you hooked and to make money from the advertisements. And so they understand exactly what to show you to keep you hooked, right? Dopamine is released whenever there's the expectation of a reward. So it's kind of the same psychology behind a slot machine, right? Most of the time you lose, but every now and then they'll let you win. And what that does is it conditions your brain to believe that every time that you lose, you're one step closer to winning, right? And that gives you a dopamine hit. Every time I pull this lever, it represents a chance that I'm going to win. And what I've noticed that they do with the videos on TikTok or any of these social media platforms, a lot of times is they'll show you videos that are just kind of okay. Like, they've got somewhat engagement or whatever. And then all of a sudden, bam, they'll show you a video with like 20 million views and likes and all this stuff. And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden you get this reward. And then now your brain is like, it's like you're literally scrolling. It's like a drug addiction.
Yeah.
That's actually what happens with drug addictions. It's like you're always seeking after the next big hit of dopamine that comes from the drugs. And so anyway, yeah, and that's also a way to numb your body. It's a way to stay in your head. It's an escape. And that doesn't make you a bad person. I did the same thing. In fact, what I tell people is that's actually a good thing. Like you found a way to make yourself feel better. You developed a skill set. If I go to the gym and blare music and get out of my body, well then I feel better. If I scroll on TikTok all day, I feel better while I'm doing that. And so what I tell people is now that you have that skill set, all we got to do is just change what you're doing to make yourself feel better. We teach you how to self-regulate. We give you proper co-regulation, also make some lifestyle adjustments, and then bam. So you're already off to the races. So anyway, with that being said, anything else that you can think of that you tried?
Hmm.
Did somebody teach you to distract your mind? Was that like anything that you were taught, or was that just something that you did naturally?
I think that's just something I did naturally because I was so scared and I didn't want to think about what was going through my body. Yeah.
Got you. Okay. Well, yeah. Anything else you can think of before we move on?
This was something that I worked on with my psychologist. It was like, I don't know if this would really help with the point, but it was like kind of disregarding the symptoms. Like if they're there, they're there. If they're not, they're not. But that maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, that's good. I mean, just allowing them to be there, not resisting them. But if we're not dealing with the roots of the apple tree and you're just working on accepting the apples, that becomes problematic.
Yeah.
But that's not bad though. And see, that's the thing is like a lot of times when people come to us, I mean, they're doing some things that are good,
Mhm.
but just because something helps doesn't mean that it heals,
Yeah.
right? And so, okay. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. So you're basically trying all these things, nothing's working. How did you come across me?
I believe I Googled you. I was Googling, I mean, at that time, I was on the internet Googling just about every single thing I could about symptoms, what they were, how to fix them, and like, yeah, looking for like the quickest solution really possible. Um, and I had like joined like some programs, but they were like 7 day like programs where you sign up and they send you a video each day talking about symptoms and stuff like that,
Mhm.
um, which didn't really help. And then I think I came upon your program and I saw it and I I don't know, I think it really just drew me in because I heard your story with it and
Mhm.
your experience, and not a lot of people kind of um, had that in their programs. It was just very like, I don't know, it felt more like they were just trying to sell something versus like connect with the person who is going through all those symptoms. Um, so yeah, I came upon your program through Google, I think it was.
Good old Googler or
Yeah.
Dr. Google.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear people say that sometime, and I'm like, okay, well, however you found me, that's awesome.
Mhm.
And whenever it came to joining our Rise program, what were some of the fears that were going through your head whenever it came time to apply? Because everybody faces these fears because it's like at this point they've tried so many different things and their brain is telling them all kinds of stuff. Can you remember what any of those fears were?
Yeah, I mean, well, at the time I was still seeing my psychologist, so in my head I was like if that's not working, like what's going to work? I didn't think anything was really going to work. You know, every program promises results, every program promises you this and that, so it was like what's going to I don't know what's gonna make this program different.
And this
But
guy's got this really weird Adam's apple and like pretty floppy ears. And my daughter, we have a 10-month-old daughter, she literally has the same floppy ears. I feel so bad. They called me Dumbo whenever I was little.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so it's like, the person with the advanced mental health degree, it hasn't been able to help. What's the odds that this weird looking guy is going to be able to help? That's why I have like the fancy camera, is kind of just to distract away from all the weirdness. And I can't really grow a beard either. Like my brother's got the beard genes. But yeah, but basically your mind was like, what are the odds that this will work if all this other stuff didn't work?
Yeah.
But like, what did you do to give yourself permission to go ahead and take that leap, even though your brain was kind of skeptical? Like, what allowed you to go ahead and apply?
I mean, at that point, I just had nothing to lose. My life was like, I think it was like one of the lowest points in my life, honestly. And I just thought, well, why shouldn't I? Like, what is there to lose? And hearing your story and knowing that you recovered, I just I thought it would be foolish of me not to sign up. It doesn't hurt in signing up, it doesn't hurt in applying. So
Absolutely. And we did the discovery call,
yeah.
and I have done so many of those at this point. I don't necessarily remember.
Mhm.
But on the discovery call that we did, you know, like what was it about that call that really made you confident that it would work for you? Do you remember?
Well, I remember you went over it very like step by step and you really simplified what was going to happen. Like I saw what would you kind of just laid out what the program would look like and what it would, how that would work in my life and what I would have to do. And um I mean it just seemed like a very systematic and like well-based approach that
Yeah.
I hadn't really seen in anything else. And I just really liked the way how you explained it, described it, and just, you know, it just, I don't know, it seemed very different than what I'd been told from my psychologist and other things. Like I can't really describe it, but it just made sense.
Yeah.
And even though
Yeah.
it made sense, I was still skeptical about it because I mean, at least at the time, I just thought psychologists, like everyone in the mental health profession, that's like doctors, but I don't know, it just kind of like made sense in a weird way.
Yeah, yeah. Your brain probably had almost collapsed the whole category of anybody that can help with this is not really able to help me. We come across that a lot. And that's part of complex trauma, right? If you have a painful experience over and over and over again, eventually as a defense mechanism, your brain is like, let's just go ahead and mark all of this as a threat to prevent you from further pain. And
Mhm.
so that's why, I tell people like you're going to have to overcome that. And I know that your brain's telling you that this is just going to be like everything else, but it's not. It's going to be very, very different and more effective. And it's because of a lot of different things, which we'll go over. Well, I'm glad you did it. So we started working together. And what would you say was the thing that really helped you the most as far as the program? Like once you got started, like what was the thing that you started doing it really started to cause you to see results? Or multiple things, just anything at all.
In terms of the program or what we learned in the program?
Uh Both.
Well, I know that like having, for example, like one-on-one coaching, like being able to just kind of reach out and get the help that I need within like such a reasonable amount of time helped a lot. Like I remember there'd be so many times where I was freaking out over something and I just um reached out and then like sometimes even like within minutes you would answer me back and that like helped so much. Um and then I had whatever you told me to apply and I applied that and it would literally instantly almost help me or I had like advice for what to do in times of um for whatever reasons I was reaching out to you for. So that was really helpful. Also, just I think the fact that there are other people in the program who are going through literally the exact same thing as you, and they all have your support, and you support them, and it's like a little community almost. And I don't know, I felt that was very like I felt like it was very empowering. And I remember always leaving like meetings and just feeling very just good about myself and like hopeful.
Yes. And that's a fundamental understanding that shapes how we structure our programs is we understand that humans heal humans. And this is the missing element. And it takes a lot of work too. Like whenever you give hope to people and build relationship with them and really truly support them through the ups and downs, it takes a lot of energy. It's not easy,
Mhm.
right? But it's necessary, right? Humans heal humans. That's how we're wired. And so there's a level of co-regulation and just regulation in the nervous system in general that can happen through being around somebody who understands you, who gets you, who's building hope in you, that far supersedes any method on the planet. Now, we do need to have, a body-based method. That's super important, right? That's what the latest neuroscience is showing us. The body keeps the score, right? The body becomes this gel cell, basically, this prison cell, because you have all these painful past experiences. The brain forms all kinds of triggers, and all of a sudden, your body subconsciously starts to go into fight, flight, freeze all day. Um, and obviously, we need to directly get in tune with the body and release those things from the body. We need to make lifestyle adjustments as well, which I want to talk to you in a second about that. But nothing is more potent than co-regulation and just being around people that get you, because we're wired for one another. And I could get super deep in the nerdy neuroscience of that, but I'll spare you the time because you already understand it. Basically, the first thing that our brain looks to whenever we have a perceived threat is social engagement to regulate ourselves. That is literally the frontline defense for whenever we feel threatened, is we look to other people to calm us down. And then if that doesn't work, we go to fight or flight. If that doesn't work, we go to the freeze. But anyway, so understanding that we're wired to look to each other for co-regulation. Whenever people don't get that, that's one reason why initially, whenever the symptoms come in, that they start freaking out, or they get on Google, or they get on Reddit, or YouTube comments, and they see people that have been struggling for a very, very long time who haven't been able to heal, and then they read articles saying that there's no cure, and then all of a sudden they don't get that co-regulation, and they start to panic and freak out, and that's one of the layers that fuels this very thick onion um, of stress that people have. And so anyway, so starting to find people that have experienced it, who have gone through it, who, especially in the program, who are actively getting over it. Like right now, it's the best group that we've ever had. Literally, the results with this current group, like it's everybody sees results, but like the quickness with this group that I have right now, it's been insane. I mean, like the results are exploding. And I think one thing that I shifted, which I don't know if I did this, I don't think I did whenever you were in the program, but whenever somebody posts or sends me a message that they're seeing results, I'll screenshot it and I'll post it for everybody to see. And oh my
Mhm.
gosh, it has created like this chain reaction effect that, like, if people are like, oh my gosh, well, gosh, they're seeing results, so maybe I can too. And so
Yeah.
anyway, I'm always trying to make things better. But all right, so with that being said, um, when it came to the body, let's talk about that.
Mhm.
What did you find when it comes to the body-based approach that surprised you?
How easy and effective it is. I thought, like, at first when I thought of when I went through the course, I thought I mean, I'd never heard of a body-based approach ever. Maybe I heard of like a bit of deep breathing, but yeah, I it was so new to me. And I was shocked at how um yeah, I was shocked at how simple it was and how I overcomplicated it. Um and
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so how simple it is, and once you see the body side of things, it just makes sense. It's like, well, of course, why didn't we, like, why wasn't I taught this?
Mhm.
It's like it's all about the mind, the mind, the mind, the mind. And if your body is not in the right state, you're not going to be able to do much with your mind, because the mind and the body are intimately connected, right? And so that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that you had that experience. So, what would you say was, like, your number one fear during recovery?
My number one fear, Um, on it that I would never recover. That was the one thing that I would never recover because when I joined your program, I had experienced symptoms for a while. So at that point, I was like, what does normal even feel like? Will I even feel normal again? Like at that point, I just wanted the life that I had back. And I was just scared that no matter what I would do, because nothing else was working, that I just would never get better. I know that I also struggled with giving in my 100% into the program for a very long time. I think that I put in 100% at like the very end of the program, actually. And it was a constant battle. I wasn't giving it my all. And I was thinking to myself, like, because of this, I'm never going to recover. That was another big fear of mine.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. What I tell people is if you look at this in terms of like neural connections in the brain, which are physical connections between sensory data or somatic data and fight, flight, freeze response, in this case, your brain is wired to keep you in fight, flight, freeze response. And so whenever you're trying to do things that are opposite than that, things that convey safety to the brain and nervous system, and we're going to use neuroplasticity to rewire the brain, it's like two rams hitting horns. I mean, it's like your default settings are to do all the opposite things that you need to do, right? Instead of being in your body, you're wired to be disembodied, to be in your head all day. Instead of listening to your body, you're wired to muscle your way through life, right? Instead of relaxing, the default setting is tension.
Mhm.
Instead of facing and feeling your emotions, the default is to suppress them, right? Instead of having boundaries like you should with people and with life, the default is to just be a people pleaser, just, you know, um, not even take into consideration your energy levels or your health. As
Mhm.
far as symptoms, instead of inviting them in, the default is to resist them. As far as exposure to living life, the default is avoidance. And even people that don't avoid sensory triggers physically, they're still avoiding them because they'll be in the presence of the sensory trigger, but they're in their head. So they're physically present, but they're interoceptively absent. They're not in their body. Some people say, well, I don't avoid anything and I'm still symptomatic. Well, you're still avoiding the environment though, because you're not in the environment, you're in your head. So anyway, whenever you are changing the default settings, it's a very slow and tedious process, and it's going to feel like a tug of war,
Mhm.
right? And so, but anyway, but yeah, hey, better late than never, right? Even if
Yeah.
it took till the end. So we don't have to get into any details. In fact, I want to keep it private, but there was a relationship that we had to set some boundaries with. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. There's just someone in my life that is a bit toxic to say the least. And it was just completely affecting my recovery. And that was a big factor as to why I would dissociate and just experience like horrible fight flight symptoms. Um, and the one thing I can say about boundaries is that in the moment you don't want to even think about it because boundaries are hard. That was like one thing that I struggled a lot with was setting boundaries. And all I can say is that it's worth it because if I hadn't set certain boundaries with a certain person, I probably would have not been able to get to where I'm at today. Um, yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's very, very common during recovery interviews that I have this conversation. Oh, thank goodness, I almost spilled my water. Uh, but anyway, that I have this conversation with people that we like, okay, we had to set some boundaries with either a toxic or abusive person or people in your life. And that's not what people think of. People have a very symptom centric approach, which the symptoms are not the problem. The symptoms are your body preparing you to address a threat. The question is, why is there so much emotional distress in your life that your body is preparing to address a threat that isn't there? And one of those factors can be a very toxic or abusive relationship, somebody that's coming into your life and is just constantly spewing negativity or bring you down, or in the case of abuse, it's literally intentional, verbal, mental, emotional, physical, or any other type of abuse. And that's why, there's like a whole movement about like acceptance. And I love acceptance. Yeah, we definitely should invite in the symptoms. That's good. Do that.
Mhm.
But if, let's say, for example, you're married to somebody or engaged to somebody, or maybe it's a parent or it's a relative, which is very hard with family members, especially because like this, you feel like it's your responsibility to stay connected to them because they're family. But I always tell people, family is how you treat people. A blood relation doesn't equal family. But anyway, but you've got these people in your life that are continually creating chaos in your nervous system, and you don't set up the appropriate boundaries. Well, you can accept your symptoms all day, but until you set up boundaries or walk away from those people, you're in what's called a nervous system war zone. It's an environment that is highly chaotic, highly unpredictable, highly unstable, highly punitive, or highly aggressive. Not just a little bit of those things, but highly, as in it's consistent. And I've got a few clients right now. One of them is having to walk away from a long-term relationship. I've got another one that I think it's her mom will basically just like I don't want to share any details, but like her mom basically comes into her life unexpectedly and just brings a lot of toxicity, and it's pretty much every day. And I've been talking with her, and I'm like, even if it's just 20 minutes a day, that 20 minutes can create so much dysregulation. And also, whenever she's not there, you're always wondering at any minute, is she going to show up into your life? And so we're working on setting some very strong boundaries. But boundaries have a cost, like you said. Well, you said they're worth it. And that's what I tell people. The cost of not having boundaries is significantly higher than the cost of having boundaries. I probably have more boundaries than most people out there, but there was a time in my life where I had zero boundaries, none. I was a people pleaser. I would basically just give out my time, my energy, my affection, anybody who asked for it, or even people that didn't even ask for it. I would just be like, hey, can I, hey, let me help you. And
Yeah.
now I'm extremely careful about my energy expenditures because I accept that I'm only one human being, and I have a zero tolerance policy for any negativity, any toxicity, especially abuse. Oh my gosh. Like it just will never happen to me again. But, and I also understand the tactics of manipulators too. And you need to study manipulation tactics, gaslighting, projection, just, all that stuff, because manipulative people will find a way into your life, and you're so manipulated that you don't even realize that they're manipulating you. And they'll be able to constantly uh, destroy your nervous system, and you don't even realize that it's happening. And
Yep.
so anyway, especially narcissistic abuse, everybody needs to do a little bit of research on that and understand the tactics, the 9 traits of narcissism, because I had 2 narcissists in particular that came into my life that brought so much devastation and directly contributed to my trauma state, because they brainwashed me into thinking that I was this terrible person. They exaggerated all my weaknesses and mistakes, and I was too busy on a treadmill trying to win them over that I didn't even realize, wait a second, maybe they're the problem. I assumed that I was the problem all the time. And so anyway, boundaries in relationships are paramount. And also getting away from toxicity, which is just somebody that's bringing you down, tons of negativity, like constantly, or abuse of any kind, especially, you got to get away from them, is necessary. Right. So I'm really proud of you for doing that. And I
Thank you.
remember it wasn't easy for you, but I'm so glad that you did that. So, what would you say was the biggest challenge during your recovery?
Changing my lifestyle was like a big thing. I
How
can
so?
talk. Um, Everyone goes out every weekend. Everyone drinks. Everyone has ridiculous hours of going to bed and waking up. I think I remember thinking to myself, this was like the worst time in my life to experience
Mm,
these symptoms
I
because
remember you saying that.
yeah, like now it's just to me, it was like now is not the time. Like, um, I remember when I like in grade 11 when I already got them, I started to experience symptoms. I thought to myself, as long as I can, recover by this point, so I can have my, university experience to be like fun and um, not worry about symptoms. I'll be fine. But that wasn't the case. And so when I got to university, it was so hard for me to accept that I have to make adjustments. I can't live a lifestyle that everyone else around me is living. It's an investment, just it's like setting boundaries. But that was very hard for me, like realizing that my lifestyle is going to have to look different than other people's lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a cost, and people don't want to hear that. But it's like, I mean, what in life doesn't have a cost? You know, like everything that's valuable has a price tag on it. And if it didn't cost you anything, I challenge whether or not it really is that valuable, right? Everything in my life that I'm really, really proud of that has just changed my life, I had to fight for it. And so, but the thing about it is the benefit far exceeds the cost. That's the thing, is like once you pay the cost and you contrast that with the benefit, you're like, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I may be giving up this thing and this thing, but I'm gaining, in this case, peace.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I work with college students all the time, and not just, I mean, it's not just a temptation for college students, but just people, that are tempted to go out and just kind of live the fast lifestyle where you just go out partying and drinking and drugs and this thing, and you know sleep is thrown to the wind, and consistency and routine is thrown to the wind. And what I will tell you is I dabbled with partying and stuff after I graduated high school, and I don't think I'd ever been more empty and anxious in my life.
Mhm.
And, I went club to club and did all this stuff. And what I found myself realizing was that all the people around me that I thought were my friends were really not my friends. And it was very transactional. They were kind of using me for their own selfish purposes. And it all hit me whenever I went to move. This was like, I think in 2009, I had to go back home to my mom's house. And I was working at this call center about an hour from home. Um, and I also lived in an apartment complex around a lot of the people that worked with me. And, we hung out all the time, and they were supposedly my best buds. Whenever it came time for me to move, there was nobody there to help. I'll never forget that. I said, "You guys gonna help me?" And one of this guy that I actually picked up for work every day, great guy, amazing cook. Oh my gosh, he could cook some freaking amazing barbecue and shrimp. But he went, "Nah, man." He shook my hand. He's like, "I'm not gonna be able to come." And I was like, "Okay, this is a very big eye opener for me." And so anyway, yep. What I always tell people that are in college is like, you can invest these years in partying, or you could basically take this opportunity to build a business or build the life that you want to live, and invest that time, and you will be thankful for it. Right. I wish I could go back to whenever I was 18, 19 and know the stuff that I know now. Oh my gosh, it would be insane. All
Mhm.
right. So let me shift to asking you this. Let's say that you're talking to somebody who's watching this, and they've seen my videos, and they've seen the Adam's apple and the ears, the weird Joe Dirt facial. They're a little scared because of that. No, but seriously, they're struggling to make a decision whether they should even apply to our program, because just like you, they've been burned so many times. They've tried this thing and this thing and this thing, whether it's acceptance or distraction or CBT or talking about it or going to a therapist or this thing or this thing.
Yeah.
And yet here's another guy saying he's going to be able to help. What would you say to them to help build that faith that this is going to be different after having gone through the program and seen the results that you've seen?
I mean, all I can say is that this program, and I truly mean this, has literally saved my life. And I don't think I would be able to be at the place where I'm at today if it wasn't for the Rise program, and if it wasn't for your help and just being alongside. Um, my recovery and through the ups and through the downs, because it's not something that I don't think you can do alone. I've experienced trying to recover by myself, and it was very scary, and um, it just felt very defeating, and just there was zero hope and zero encouragement. Um, and I just think, I, I think that not only has this program even like eliminated all these symptoms, but it changes your life. It changes the way you live your life. You just have so much higher expectations for how your life should be. And I don't know, I used to think, oh my gosh, I want the life that I had before I experienced symptoms. And I look back and it's like, I don't want that life. Like neglecting what's going on in my body, not just being in tune with all the stress that's happened and accumulated in my body and all this stuff. It's like I wasn't living a healthy life even before symptoms appeared. And I don't know. I think this is like the first time in my life where I feel like I have everything under control and I just have everything and all the tools I need to live a healthy life. And I don't have to worry about ever getting symptoms again. That's another thing. That doesn't even cross my mind. I don't dwell on that. I know that I'm set for life, really. Yeah.
Well, that is amazing. And that is what I tell people all the time is, working with us, it's not just going to set you up to get rid of symptoms, right? It's going to set you up to permanently get rid of symptoms for the rest of your life because you're going to know the factors that cause the symptoms actually cause them instead of just symptom management. And you're going to be able to live a preventative lifestyle. And we really focus on setting you up for post-traumatic growth, which is where you walk away even stronger. And you were literally a living picture of that. So that meant a lot. Thank you so much for saying that. Like, this is why I do what I do, is stories like yourself. And just my wife and I were driving the other day and she was like, it's really crazy to think that there's like somebody in, Japan, or somebody in Canada, or somebody in Hawaii, or the UK, and just God, the amount of countries that people from different countries that I work with is just amazing. That they're literally sitting there doing something that you taught them. And I was like, that is kind of crazy. I guess I don't think about that enough. But like, somebody's doing like a body-based strategy on the other side of the world and all over the place. And so just to hear your story, I guess I'm just thinking about that. um it's just it means the world to me that I've been able to have an impact on your life on a personal level. um so let's talk about that as far as the people who are curious. I mean, you sent this message to me on October 14th. You said, I've been very busy with school, been doing really great the past month especially. You said, I go weeks without having DPDR, and it only occurs very rarely if I get lack of sleep, but it's only getting better. As for anxiety, basically, it only lasts for a short time. And so, kind of like, what's your life like now that these symptoms are mitigated and almost, I think you had said, um, you said, where I'm at right now in terms of recovery is best and most connected I felt in the past 3 years. I think in a month or two, the DPDR symptoms should be gone permanently for good.
Yeah.
So, what's life like now that you don't have to worry about these dang symptoms anymore and that they're on their way out completely?
I truly am just like, I think I'm like the happiest I've ever been for one. Um, I just, I don't know. It's nice waking up in the morning and not thinking to myself like, oh, here goes another day with dissociation and anxiety. The fact that it doesn't even cross my mind. I never thought I'd be able to get to like this point, really. Also, when at the time when I first started experiencing panic attacks, even I thought this would be something I deal with for the rest of my life. And I haven't experienced a panic attack, and I want to say like a very, very long time. And it's just I feel peaceful and the calmest I've ever been as well. It's just I don't know, it really feels like this whole other life that I'm living with like a calm body. Um, yeah.
That's awesome. Have the people around you seen a difference?
I think so, yeah. I didn't really share my experience with too many people. I only shared my experience with people who were really close to me because I find that it's hard explaining to people what you're going through and they just have no
Yeah, so
idea.
they didn't even know. Yeah.
So some of them didn't even know, but I think people can tell for sure. Like my close ones, like people that are close to me and my family and like my really close friends. I think they can tell, yeah.
So where do you go from here? Like what's next for you as far as your life?
I mean, I sorry, that's a very I have to think about that question. I can say that I don't really stress about the future anymore. And I feel like I worry a lot less. Um, I just know that I have all the tools that I need to live a healthy life. And I don't know, I'm excited for the future. Like, I don't know, I'm always just excited for like a new day and like I I don't know, I'm not scared to really live anymore. I used to be really scared to live and scared to feel all these horrible symptoms and it just I don't know, I'm excited just for life. I know it sounds kind of funny, but it's just like I love living life. It sounds funny, but like life is just like really enjoyable now. And I'm just I don't know, always excited for another day.
Yeah, no, and that may seem not that big of a deal to some people, but whenever you didn't have that before, whenever every day was just another dread of like, oh, here's another day with symptoms, like just being able to enjoy your life and be happy and be able to focus on your goals and dreams, like that's huge.
Yeah.
And so wow, that is amazing. I'm so proud of you for your results, and I'm so thankful that I got to work with you. And you have so many amazing things ahead of you. Now that you've got these symptoms out of the way, life is a blank canvas. I mean, that's what I tell people is like the symptoms are really just a big distraction. I believe that everybody has a mission on this earth, and the mission looks different depending on who you are. Doesn't always have to mean impacting the masses or anything like that. You know, my grandma, who is the matriarch of our family, sadly, she's passed away. I mean, you know, she, very few people knew who she was, but that woman impacted families for generations to come just by her love. And she would leave, you know, groceries on the doorstep of people and then just drive off and never even tell them that it was her. And just, you know, her love and kindness and compassion and unconditional love, just being there for people. But anyway, everybody's got a mission, right? And it takes time to figure out what it is. And it evolves over time too. But once the symptoms are out of the way, now you can actually get going on that mission. And not
Yeah.
just your mission in life, but also the things that make us happy, social connection and personal development and helping other people and love and just all this amazing stuff. Now that's all available to you to pursue. You can't pursue that if you have the symptoms because it's like whenever you're in fight, flight, freeze response, it's like if you think about it, they're very selfish states. And I don't mean that in a derogatory context. It's like you can't really think about anybody else but yourself. You can't think about your future or your goals. You can't think about helping people because you're just so distraught and in these symptoms. And so once you're out of the symptoms, now you can focus on other people. You actually have energy to give to them. And you can also focus on your life and reigning in life. And it's just a beautiful thing. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
all right. Well, that's it. I really appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you, Jordan. Thank you.